You betrayed me, Jules. You're finished. You're mine now.
You will never win.
And why is that? Because you are...
Welcome to Mr. Screen. Apocalypse is without a doubt, if not one of the greatest threat to the X-Men. In the case of the Avengers, Thanos has caused several problems, but we still have Doctor Doom and many other beings. The issue is that the Omega-level mutant in his timeline can feel that the distortions caused by Doom can harm him, and thus an unusual alliance between Apocalypse and Thanos can happen. Well, that's the story of the multiverse that I'm going to bring you now. Without further ado, let's get straight to the point. The distortions of time. Amidst the chaos and vastness of space, an ancient and immortal being awakens. Apocalypse, the mutant known as N-Saba-Nur, silently observed the flows of time through his vast powers. He felt the distortions in the timelines, a chaotic pattern that could not be ignored. Each crack that opened in the fabric of reality was related to a single name, Doom Stark. After the events of Thanos' defeat, the universe began to experience an era of recovery. But Apocalypse knew that dangers never disappeared, they only reinvented themselves. Now, the new and increasingly powerful Doom Stark, an incomprehensible fusion between Tony Stark's intellect and Victor Von Doom's devastating ambition, was rising to power. With nearly unlimited control over technology and magic, Doom Stark was quietly accumulating power, reorganizing realities to his will. Apocalypse, who had always believed himself the true heir to dominion over humanity and all mutants, saw in this new force a threat that could not be ignored. He sensed that Doom Stark's supremacy could alter not only a timeline, but the very essence of existence. The mutant Omega's connection to parallel realities gave him a clear vision of what was to come. Timelines were being manipulated, universes destroyed and recreated, and Doom Stark was advancing, silently consolidating his rule. Apocalypse could not allow a usurper to steal what he believed was his birthright: the search for Thanos. Amidst the distortions of time, Apocalypse spotted a glimmer of hope, a timeline in which Thanos, the Mad Titan, was still alive. In all known realities, Thanos was one of the few entities whose power could rival that of Doom Stark. And while Apocalypse despised Thanos' insane devotion to death, he recognized that together they could be a formidable force against this new threat. Apocalypse, with his vast knowledge of time travel, opened a portal to this timeline. He knew that finding Thanos would not be easy. The Mad Titan was an unpredictable and reclusive being, but with imminent destruction looming, Apocalypse was prepared to convince him. He stepped through the portal and emerged into a universe ravaged by war. This was a universe where the Avengers had been destroyed, and Thanos still ruled with the Infinity Gauntlet. The world around him was covered in ruins, a dark reminder of past battles. Thanos, despite his total victory, seemed immersed in solitude. He sat on a makeshift throne on his garden planet, staring blankly into the distance. Apocalypse appeared before him in a beam of blue light, his imposing figure full of power. Thanos slowly rose to his feet, his eyes burning with silent fury. "You dare disturb my peace, mutant?" Thanos growled, his deep voice echoing through the room. Apocalypse remained calm. "Your peace is an illusion, Titan. While you wallow in your empty conquests, a new threat rises. Doom Stark. He manipulates the timelines and will soon be more powerful than any of us. I have come to you because I know that only together can we defeat him." Thanos frowned. Doom Stark, Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom, two flawed men fused into one. Why should I care? Because if we don't do something now, he will destroy what you have worked so hard to create. He respects no balance, no chaos. Doom Stark seeks only absolute control. Even death rejects him, for he seeks to reshape all of existence. There will be no universe, no you know us, only him. For a moment, Thanos was silent, considering. Apocalypse knew that the Titan was driven by logic as much as emotion, and he had hit the nail on the head. To Thanos, the idea of losing control and being outmaneuvered by someone was unacceptable. "What do you suggest?" Thanos finally asked, his expression hardening. "The unlikely alliance." Apocalypse stepped forward, his towering figure looming over Thanos. "A temporary alliance. I'll lend you my powers, and with the Infinity Gauntlet, we will increase our combined abilities to overcome Doom Stark." He does not wait for his greatest enemies to join forces. This is the only way to defeat him. Thanos was silent, his mind weighing the proposal. He had always been a loner, relying only on himself to achieve his goals. But Apocalypse's words awakened a need he could not ignore: survival. Doom Stark, with his manipulation of time and space, represented a danger he could not combat alone. Temporary. Thanos finally agreed. I accept your offer, mutant. But at the end of this, you will return to your world, and I will continue what I began. The universe must remain in balance. Apocalypse nodded, knowing that his alliance with Thanos was precarious, but necessary. He extended his hand, and Thanos did the same. When their hands touched, a bright glow enveloped them both, signaling the beginning of the temporary merging of their powers. The hunt for Doom Stark. With their powers combined, Apocalypse and Thanos traveled through the timelines in search of Doom Stark. The task was incredibly difficult, for Doom Stark had created an impenetrable fortress in an alternate timeline. This fortress existed outside of space and time, where he manipulated realities and continued to grow in power. They found devastated realities, entire universes destroyed by the hands of Doom Stark, who was relentlessly cementing his supremacy. Each of these realities reflected an apocalyptic vision of destruction, and Apocalypse saw the dark future that awaited all dimensions if they could not stop Doom Stark. He's playing God, Apocalypse muttered, his eyes glowing with hatred. He sees no limits. Gods fall as easily as men. Thanos replied, his eyes fixed on nothing. All we need is the right opportunity. When they finally reached Doom Stark's point of origin, the battle began. Doom Stark awaited them, his armor resplendent with cosmic energy and magic. He looked at Thanos and Apocalypse with calculated contempt. Two of the most powerful beings in the universe united against me? Doom Stark smirked. Do you really think you stand a chance? The final showdown. The ensuing battle was beyond mortal comprehension. Energy bolts tore through space, worlds shook with the impact of each blow, and time ebbed and flowed at Doom Stark's whim. Thanos and Apocalypse attacked with everything they had, but Doom Stark, with his fusion of technology and magic, was nearly unstoppable. Even so, Thanos and Apocalypse, combining brute strength and tactical intellect, began to find openings. Thanos wielded the Infinity Stones masterfully, while Apocalypse used his vast experience to identify Doom Stark's attack patterns. But Doom Stark was always one step ahead. He seemed to be able to predict their moves, altering the realities around them to suit his desires. Every time they seemed to gain ground, Doom Stark pushed them back, bending time and space to his own ends. However, Apocalypse knew that Doom Stark had a weak spot: his ego. He knew that Stark's, or Doom's, desire to control everything would be his downfall. As the battle raged on, Apocalypse began to attack not only physically, but mentally, exposing Doom Stark's emotional flaws, inciting his rage, and provoking his arrogance. Finally, Thanos, with the Infinity Gauntlet glowing with absolute power, saw the opening he had been waiting for. In a moment of Doom Stark's distraction, Thanos launched a devastating attack, breaking through the villain's protective barrier. Apocalypse stepped forward at the same time, unleashing all of his mutant power to destabilize Doom Stark's remaining defenses. The fall of Doom Stark. With a burst of light and energy, Doom Stark was finally defeated. His screams of rage and despair echoed as his fusion between Stark and Doom crumbled. Thanos and Apocalypse stood over Doom Stark's fallen body, victorious but aware that their alliance was temporary. With one last look at Apocalypse, Thanos disappeared into the void, leaving the Omega Mutant alone to reflect on what had been achieved. But Apocalypse knew that while Doom Stark had fallen, other threats would arise. He was eternal, and as long as time and space were distorted, he would be there to ensure that his rule over the universe would never be challenged again. Balance had been restored, for now. The silent truce. After Doom Stark's fall, absolute silence reigned over the battlefield. The vastness of the cosmos seemed to sigh in relief, as if the universe could finally breathe freely after being pressed down by such an overwhelming force. However, for Apocalypse, this victory brought no satisfaction. His mind remained occupied with the distorted timelines he had witnessed and the knowledge that other threats could arise. He knew that even without Doom Stark, the universe was far from safe. As Apocalypse walked away from the rubble of the battle, he noticed that Thanos had disappeared without a word. The alliance with the Mad Titan was merely a temporary convenience, and they both knew that, at another time, they might find themselves as enemies once again. For Thanos, balance was the ultimate goal, But Apocalypse had greater ambitions. He sought the survival and evolution of the strongest, those who deserved to rule. The echo of the timelines. Even with Doom Stark's defeat, the temporal distortions did not cease completely. Apocalypse, with his heightened senses, could perceive that the repercussions of Doom's manipulations were still affecting realities. Universes he had touched continued to vibrate anomalously, like poorly patched fabric. Upon returning to his base in Egypt, Apocalypse decided to study these distortions further. Using his vast technological and mutant skills, he began to map the different timelines, trying to find the source of any remnants of threat that might arise. The merger between Stark and Doom had left an indelible mark on time, and there were traces of power scattered throughout. It was then that he found something troubling, an anomaly that was not Doom Stark's, but an even older and more powerful distortion. A force that Apocalypse recognized as predating the very existence of timelines as we know them. The entity had no clear form, name, or origin, but the mere presence of this force in the distorted timelines indicated that something even more sinister was to come. The arrival of another enemy. As Apocalypse investigated these new anomalies, he sensed a presence approaching. Before he could react, the environment around him began to warp, and suddenly he found himself in a different plane, a dark, timeless space without boundaries. A voice echoed from the shadows, cold and emotionless. "Do you think defeating Doom Stark has brought balance?" Apocalypse turned to see a figure emerging from the darkness. A humanoid-looking being, shrouded in a dark, mystical aura, whose eyes glowed with the power of the stars. It was none other than Kong the Conqueror, a master of timelines and a mortal time traveler. "You have interfered with my manipulations, mutant," Kong said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Doom Stark was just a pawn in my grand plan. Now you have upset the balance of the timelines, and that will not go unpunished." Apocalypse looked at Kong with contempt. "You are just another fool trying to control the inevitable. I am the true master of evolution. You can control time, but you cannot escape the survival of the fittest." Kong smirked. "You think you are above time? I am time itself, mutant. And now your meddling will be corrected." The war for time. The battle between Apocalypse and Kong began quietly, but soon became an epic clash that transcended the limitations of space and time. Kong, with his mastery over the timelines, attacked from multiple points at once, bringing versions of himself from different eras and realities to battle Apocalypse. Apocalypse, with his unmatched strength and mutant powers, fought fiercely against Kang's onslaught, quickly adapting to the changes in time and space. With each blow they exchanged, the fabric of reality became increasingly unstable, and the timelines continued to fracture. While Apocalypse attempted to strike Kong directly, the Conqueror used his mastery of time to dodge and counterattack in unpredictable ways. He manipulated the very flow of the fight, becoming faster and stronger, while attempting to trap Apocalypse in an endless time loop. However, Apocalypse, with his ancient wisdom and unmatched resilience, began to notice the patterns in Kang's attacks. He used his own evolution to adapt to Kang's control of time, and soon began to find loopholes in the Conqueror's manipulations. The fate of the timelines. As the battle raged on, the timelines around them began to fracture irreversibly. Each blow, each burst of temporal energy threatened to destroy entire realities. Universes began to crumble under the weight of the conflict, and the anomaly that Apocalypse had detected earlier began to expand, as if feeding on the destruction caused by the battle. Kong, sensing the imminent danger, attempted to rewind time, but was stopped by Apocalypse, who trapped him in a destructive time loop. "You cannot escape, Kong," Apocalypse declared, his voice implacable. "This battle ends now." With a final effort, Apocalypse used all his strength to deliver a devastating blow to Kong, disintegrating his physical form and forcing the Conqueror to dissipate into pure temporal energy. The timelines around them began to stabilize, but the damage had already been done. Apocalypse's future. With Kong defeated and the time warps beginning to reassemble, Apocalypse stood triumphant. He had once again proven himself to be the most powerful and adaptable being in the universe. However, the remaining time warps indicated that the future was still uncertain. Though he had eliminated two major threats, Doom Stark and Kong, Apocalypse knew there was much more at stake. The anomaly he had detected before his battle with Kong remained. A hidden power older and more vast than anything he had ever faced was approaching. Apocalypse, the most powerful Omega mutant, gazed upon the horizon of the timelines. His destiny, like that of all beings in the universe, was in constant evolution. And as long as there was a threat to his dominion, he would be there to face it. Because in the end, only the strongest survive. And Apocalypse would always survive. The story ends, for now, with Apocalypse dominating time and space, but aware that the cosmic and temporal balance will never be static. That's our story for today. What do you believe about it? Have you ever imagined the most powerful mutant against Doctor Doom? Don't forget to leave a comment with your opinion, click the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I'm Mr. Screen and see you soon. Bye.